Sit down, shut up, and pay attention.
Damn!
This is the Rants of Izzo Show with your host, Dominic Izzo, from porn to politics. We touch every third rail we can find. You might want to put your headphones on so your mom can't hear this. It's been called the most entertaining 60 minutes on the internet, and it starts now. Let's do this.
Hi, Rants of Izzo Show here on Spreely Media. What does that mean? You're like, what is this? Because everybody and their mother has a show out there and all that crap. It means nothing. It means absolutely nothing. So if you don't want to listen, turn off now. I don't care. But if you do want to listen, happy Monday. Hope your weekend was great. This is the Rants of Izzo Show here on Spreely Media, where all things free speech. You could speak freely. Hence the compound word speak freely, Spreely. You know what I mean? Joining me today from the DUM Show is Matt Spear. Good to see you again. Thank you for joining again on this glorious Monday.
What's up, brother? Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate that. Before we get started, let's talk about the DUM Show, please. What is the DUM Show and how can people consume it?
Intravenously, or you can, yes. So, DUM Show, dumshow.com, thedumshow.com. It's spelled D-U-M, not D-U-M-B. It's a play on words. Stands for Don't Unfriend Me. Created the show when good family friends decided to ostracize my wife and I because we voted for Donald Trump, and now we have a show. So go there and go to Spreely, Channel 1 live, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard, Monday through Friday. And then we do a recorded show as well. Would love to have you. Love to see you. Make sure you tell me that Dom sent you, and I'll give you something special. It's the size of a baby's arm.
It's Monday. Why not go already? All right, let's get some politics out of the way here. We had the South Carolina, primary on Saturday? You and I talk about this in politics, and I think we're both on the same page where it's kind of like, it doesn't matter. Yeah. So Nikki Haley got her ass spanked, which I don't care. I don't know if
we agree on this.
All right, so this is my view. I don't care. This is where I do not care. As I'm driving to my aunt's house on Saturday, listening to the radio talk about how Nikki Haley lost by 40 points or whatever, or that kind of stuff. I went right into the Chicago mindset of politics, which is, do you guys realize she's in on it? Meaning, she knows. They told her, hey, don't drop out because we're going to do everything we can to get him not to be able to run, and then we're just automatically going to throw our support behind you. So everyone who's like, yay, she should just drop out because she's dumb. It's like, no, she's not dumb, dude. I think she's in on it. She knows, and it's going to be handed to her later on, and then we'll watch the world burn even more.
That's uplifting,
dude. That's how it is out here. That's how it is out here.
No, it's not that I disagree with some of the things you said. I've been calling. So here's the interesting thing. I'm going to toot my own horn here. If you have a horn sound effect, you might want to put that in.
No, I
it's
don't.
Okay. Beep beep. Here's the deal. I called the final three for the primary in 2020, 2 days after the 2020 election, and everyone was concerned. And I said, here's what's going to happen. Donald Trump is going to be under indictment for the rest of his time before he runs. They're going to hit him legally with civil lawsuits. They're going to try to bankrupt him. They're going to try to go ahead and arrest him. They're going to try to go ahead and hit him with charges of obstruction because they know Donald Trump can't keep his cool, and he's going to do something to say something. That's what's going to happen. So he's going to be under the gun, and they're going to try to destroy the man. Well, I think most people said the same thing. I don't think that was really unique to me. Then I said that the other two are going to be Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley. And either it's going to be Trump and DeSantis, which I don't foresee because I don't believe that the establishment Republicans will allow DeSantis to run separately. They will want him to run against Trump.
Here's I want to ask you this really quickly. Number one, can they? Because anytime you bring that up, they're both from Florida. And then the second thing is, could you imagine you're a husband and a father. Yeah. How could you ever look your wife in the eye or your kids later on when they say, hey, Dad, this guy and his followers insulted us, attacked us nonstop for a year, and you ate shit and decided to become his vice president and ate more shit in the 4 years you were in office just to become president of the United States? Yeah. That's the biggest. I would have no respect for DeSantis if he did that.
No, I wouldn't either. And I think we saw this with Marco Rubio and Lindsey Graham and others who took the knee. I mean, for God's sakes, Ted Cruz, he called his father a part of the Kennedy assassination, for God's sake. And, but to finish that point real quick, Nikki Haley, I said, would be somebody who would also be a possible VP pick. But this is where it would come down to. The thing about Nikki Haley, and I understand people think she's a neocon, but so was Mike Pence. And Mike Pence delivered the white religion zealot type areas of the states that he couldn't possibly get after Trump dropped the grab him by the hoo-ha comment. Right? We can say it here, grab him by the pussy.
Yeah,
so
like pussy.
So he got Pence. You take a look at Al Gore. Take a look at Dan Quayle. LBJ delivered Texas to Kennedy. The VP is nothing except for primary running to ensure that the states where you have a gap and the people and the demographic you're not getting, you put that person on your ticket and they'll deliver you something. Nikki Haley gives him some copeability up in the Northeast. She gives him at least 15% of the vote. She was only down by 20 points. Now, a lot of people go, that's an ass whooping. Well, hold on a second. Kamala Harris won 1% of her state. That's an ass whooping. Nikki Haley has been getting 15 to 20%. If she can bring half of those people under Trump's umbrella who are independents, who are libertarians, who are people who are disenfranchised with voting, or blue collar Democrats, which there are still some remaining, then Donald Trump has a very good chance to win. If he puts Carrie Lake, if he puts somebody who like Noem, who already is a Trump supporter, you're not getting anything for that. He's got a tough decision to make, and I'll be honest with you, man. I don't know if he's saying no on Nikki Haley and Nikki Haley's saying no on him, but you and I both know that doesn't matter. Kamala called Biden a racist and a Klan member.
That's why I have
black people, for God's sake.
I have no respect for the process. Well, I have no respect for the process because both of them are going at each other, and then all of a sudden, like idiot kids, we have to sit there and go, okay, look, now they've made we are the problem. We are stupid people who are allowing these morons to go ahead and attack each other, and they ad hominem like crazy. And then I'll be like the Kamala Harris thing. It's solidified how dumb Americans are. You go on stage and you call this man a racist to his face, and then you accept him for the step and fetch, girl.
Right.
It's like, hey, you're back on the plantation. Well, she was never, because she was Jamaican and Indian. But
let's keep it in perspective.
So I don't know, and I don't think anything's going to happen anyways. And ultimately, even if Trump wins, I don't think anything's going to happen because we still have 2028. The world will go back to shit because I don't know who's going to pick up the slack after that.
And let's remember, Ron DeSantis was the greatest of greatest choices for VP 9 months ago.
I don't know, dude. You brought that up. What the hell happened?
Well, it's the same thing it's Trump. Okay. There are people out there, especially in the Twitterverse and Facebook, and that's what we're exposed to, right? The average layman doesn't hate Nikki Haley. The average layman, unless you're completely into this political game, doesn't really hate anybody. They don't see Biden as someone they hate. This is 90% of the electorate, just doesn't get involved until October. But there is this group, this 7% that you and I interact with every single day, which are diametrically opposed on one side or the other. And it makes it sound like the whole universe knows about this. But surprisingly enough, people don't get involved. But DeSantis was the greatest. Well, Trump said, you know what? DeSantis is DeSanctimonious. They turned on him. Ted Cruz, Lindsey Graham. I can go on and on. When Trump says hit, they attack and bleed him, and the Laura Loomers of the world suck him dry like a vampire. And this is what's been going on. Nikki Haley is not a warmonger. She was in the fucking UN. And she was a governor. None of those positions have authority to declare war or send troops anywhere except for National Guard to assist in natural disasters or stop a riot. So for people, her language, yes, sometimes makes me mad. What she says is stupid. Her Joint Chiefs will get a hold of her if she's president someday. But as a VP, she'll be on African tours, so, getting Swahili spears to give to the fucking president. She's going to be doing nothing important. Get her votes, put her in.
You ever see Dave? You just described exactly the movie Dave, where Kevin Kevin Kline. Yeah, he comes with his vice president, who is a very famous actor who played Gandhi. Ben Kingsley comes back, and he's got a mask and like a spear from Africa.
Has been doing some Zulu tribe. That's right. That's where I got it from.
That's why I like having you on, because the movie references are great. I'm sexist. I'm not ready for a woman president for two reasons. Number one, Nikki Haley showed it with her faux crying bullshit over her husband who changed his name for her, all this shit. And then I'm not ready for other countries who are savage, who just don't respect women to try to do dealings with a female in office. I just don't.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of Nikki Haley as president. I'm a fan of Donald Trump getting in if that's our best choice. And at this point, I just think the people discrediting her and saying that it's a shit show. Donald Trump wasn't a president. He should be like an incumbent. He should be 90 points up on these things, but it just shows that elections are tight and they will narrow. And this whole thing is just a bunch of dressing, dude. This is just window dressing. It doesn't matter. It is going to tighten. And by the time we hit early November, 1st of November or late October, this thing will be down to 2.5 points in the polls, whether it's Biden or Trump. And that's the thing we need to understand. So this is just the game. I've been watching this shit for 40 years. This is about as interesting to me as a blocked toilet is to a plumber.
There you have it. That's I should hit the applause button on that one to end up giving you credit for that. All right, we got to switch gears. I want to play a game with you. What is the nearest without kind of divulging too much information? What is the nearest major city that you're by?
I'm a little disappointed. I thought it was going to be just the tip, just to see how this feels, but I guess we're going to do something else.
We can.
All right. So major city, Washington, D.C.
Okay, so you do have violence out there. We know how it is. You have violence of a certain culture. It's time we play Racist or True here on the Rants of Izzo show. All right. So I'm going to need you to participate a little bit. Do you have a calculator on your phone that you could grab up?
Sure.
Okay, pull that out really fast.
Even though teachers said we wouldn't, I do.
There you go. All right, so I want you to divide 148 by 26 and tell me what that is.
Yeah, 5.69.
All right, so it's the 26th day of February out here in the city of Chicago, which is 2.8 million people, and we have had 148 people shot. So that is how many people per day? 5.69. 5.69. Let's round it up to 5.7. 5.7 people are shot. 6 people are shot per day. We've had 26 killed. Over the weekend, we had, it looks like 22 were shot, and we had 6 were killed. Now, let's play, is it racist or is it true? Matthew, do you know what's the number of a mass shooting? What does that have to be? How many or more?
It's to be 4 or more.
Okay, so at 7:35 p.m. on Saturday, still pretty light out, 7:35 at night. At 8,000 South Vincennes, we had we had a male 14-year-old, a male 20-year-old, a male 36-year-old, and a male 17-year-old were all shot. 3 of those were killed. Did we have a mass shooting, or am I racist?
That would not qualify as a mass shooting.
Let me try that again. We had 4 people were shot. 3 of those people were killed. Is that a mass shooting, or am I a racist?
You're absolutely, it's not a mass shooting.
Okay, let's go on.
If 4 people were killed, it would be a mass shooting.
No, you only have to have
casualty count and murder, homicide are separated in the statistics.
No, I thought it was mass shooting is only like 4 people shot. Doesn't mean killed.
We're talking about Chicago death. We're talking homicide.
Oh yeah,
rates,
well,
right?
yeah. Okay, let's go to the next one. So at 3:35 p.m., that's 3:35 p.m. on a Saturday. Matthew, is it sunny out by you? 3:35. Is it daylight?
It's daylight. Okay. It's sunny. Yeah.
A female 19, a male 19, a male 20, and a female 22 were shot, and the female who's 18, she died. Did we have a mass shooting at 3:35 p.m. in the city of Chicago, or am I a racist?
I'm gonna have to go ahead and take the new analogy. Yes, it is absolutely a mass shooting. There you go.
Okay, there you go. And did you hear about either one of those on the news?
No, I did not. Well, actually, you know how I am, but no, not on the news. But I always check it every weekend, so I can go ahead and make a mockery of the modern day slave plantations.
Yeah, there you go. 2 mass shootings in the city of Chicago, and no report whatsoever. I love the passive aggression where there's some new video going around, and it's like, I don't even fucking play it. It's a black woman at a fast food place, and she's destroying the place. And I'm going to say this. this is my defense of it. When you take a culture, and I'm gonna have a punchline to this, when you take a culture and you destroy their family structure, you destroy their school education system. I believe in 2014 or 2016, Chicago Public Schools reported something along the lines of a 67% graduation rate for black males. So we could see the abysmal part of that. So black children are not graduating from high school, which means that they can't even articulate their words the right way. All you have to do is look at Cardi B and how she speaks and writes, and that is how the black culture communicates. You poison their bodies with the shit food and liquor and drugs, and you create a culture of people who cannot express their frustration outside of physical violence. They're overgrown toddlers. I'll give them that. But the problem is, oh, you're racist, is it seems to happen in massive numbers with the black community versus any other culture. Asian, Hispanic, white, I don't care what. But I love commenting on the video like that, and I said, that's what this culture does. And then you get the people who are black. What do you mean by that? What culture are you talking about? The one that you are passively aggressively asking me indirectly. It's the black, urban, criminal, fatherless, drugged up, food poisoned up, unable to articulate their frustration toddler culture. I don't know what else to say on that. But yeah, it's an election year, so I will say this. If my 16-year-old niece wants to go to the city of Chicago, I'm not going to be a bleeding liberal and say, hey, if you see a group of black kids walking your way, don't show fear. Make eye contact. Tell them you like them. No, cross the street. Cross the street. Make sure your iPhone is buried in your pocket. Keep your head up. Don't be staring at your phone. And always look at your peripheral vision, because you don't need to get knocked out and have your head kicked in while you're on the ground because you're a white woman. That's my rant for the violence in Chicago, and stay safe out there.
Yeah, sorry, I missed the cue on the.
There's no question. That's racist.
Is it homicide? Is it simply just casualty? Because here it comes down to it. Is that the numbers of mass shootings is so disproportionate to reality. First of all, 12% of all mass shootings happen with an AR-15. That entire narrative is just complete bullshit. The second part of that is most of them are done with a handgun, whether it be a 6-shooter, 38, or a Glock, or whatever else they possibly have, which make up like 72% of those shootings. And then you got shotguns and blunderbusses and whatever else you've got. Some ass grabs a 308 bolt action, whatever it is. It's not AR-15s. And the second thing is that they don't tell you when they say 375 shootings since March, is that most of those mass shootings, in fact, predominantly all of them, are inner city crime. And they do fall in the statistic of 4 or more. And these are drive-by shootings. These are gangland shootings. It's the shooting we saw in Kansas City, stuff like that. And the real truth is that, yeah, we've got a problem with people who have mental conditions, who grab firearms and go in and shoot places up that are predominantly unarmed. We get that. And it needs to be addressed. But if we're truly going to base it upon life, right, Dom, that's our focus, the loss of life. Well, then you got to look at the inner cities. And on top of that, you also not just look at crime and homicide rates because of drug deals or gang territory. Let's take a look at eugenics. It started with the Native Americans, with outbreeding their heathen culture of Native Americans and making sure that they were, following Christian Judeo ethics. And they took out the savage part of them, of what they said, and replaced it with something else. And then obviously stopping them and sterilizing them. Well, this has been going on in the black communities. And if we take a look, we might ask ourselves the question, well, why? And how do you know that? Well, you can just look at the percentage of abortions. And out of the 67 million since 1960, 1969 to 72, when all of this started to bloom and blossom with the peace, love, dope movement and, having copious amounts of sex with repercussions that ultimately would lead you to an abortion, is that this started happening in the poor communities because the answer was, I can't afford it. Mm-hmm. Or let's go ahead and incentivize it, which is your choice. Either you have copious amounts of kids and get a massive amount of welfare, which ultimately you get more if you don't have a father in the home, or you go ahead and abort it. And either one is acceptable to Democrats because both push the narrative for votes. This is this is the one thing people aren't talking about. Yes, drugs. Yes, there are no jobs. Yes, you can work at a fast food restaurant in the inner city, or that's it. That's it. But abortion and giving these people no choice and incentivizing them to have amount of kids that they have with no responsibility whatsoever is truly destroying the black community.
I watched YouTube.
You won't hear it.
It was 15 years ago, or 10 or 15 years ago, when YouTube first was really starting to come out. There was a girl, and her color at that point really meant nothing, but she was a black girl, was discussing how she could take everything from child support to government assistance, and it was it was a video you would expect to see now. I was shocked to see it back then. And she's like, I get $800 a month for my food, but I use it for my nails. I get X amount of $1,000 a month for my utilities, but I use it for this. She went off to list. I think she was bringing in close to $3,500 a month. And she just said, I don't work. This is what I do. And it's like, holy shit, man.
It's a lot of money, man. Have you ever been to Denver?
No, I have not.
There's a spot called 5 Points, and make this quick, but there's several areas inside Denver which are uppity, elite Beverly Hills style replications with a little bit of a cowboy flair. Not anymore. It's all freaking liberals, but Cherry Creek and Highlands Ranch. Well, there was a place called 5 Points, and I was there all the time, and it was old, run down, tactile businesses, gone bankrupt, broken windows, heroin houses, crack house. I mean, it was bad. 5 Points is like, if you wanted to find where the bodies were, that's where they were dumped. Well, a bunch of entrepreneurs came in and they crossed the lines, and they went in and they bought up all the housing. They bought up all those old businesses and essentially relocated most of the criminal population into outer areas, past Colfax and into that area where the crime was. And they created this Shangri-La. Now 5 Points is one of the nicest places in Colorado. It is gorgeous, and it is just up and coming shops and everything else. And this is the issue. And I'm not going to sit here and blame this all on black people. I'm going to blame it on white businesses who have no incentive to go into these neighborhoods because they're terrified they're going to get burned down. They're terrified they're going to get robbed every day. And those are all valid concerns. But until we start taking the railroad track mentality out of cities, which is the northwest and the northeast portions are all gorgeous with new homes, and the south is complete dog shit, or the other side of the tracks, we're never going to see change. And it's where we put the worst parts of what we don't want to recognize. And unfortunately, African Americans have to deal with that. And that's the other side. They have to accept
responsibility too.
Yeah.
I thought about opening a gym. If you ever go to a Blackhawks game or a Chicago Bulls game out here at the United Center, and all you do is walk west, you'll come up to Madison and Pulaski, and it's just a disgusting intersection. If you go Madison, North Avenue, east, you're going to see nothing but just like shit neighborhood. And I kept thinking, man, I could open up my gym down there and pay like $200 a month in rent versus the $2,000 a month I'm renting here. But what business wants to open up down there when you know it's going to be just garbage? My sister used to live in an intersection called Washington and Francisco because her then husband, they bought this gorgeous brownstone. They thought the property value would go up years later because of like Cabrini Green, where they gentrified it. Cabrini Green now it's great, but yeah, go watch the 90s, 80s, 70s. My uncle was a lieutenant of that fire department, and he used to come over on Thanksgiving and play, like they didn't have iPhones obviously back then, but he used to play cassette recorders of like hours of gunshots. That's all they had, just gunshots like crazy. And the stories we heard were crazy. And when those people moved out, well, they went to the town where I was a cop at. But who the hell, no white person wants to open up a business in any of those areas. My sister kept saying, the brownstones behind us on Warren, they're going for like $35,000. And I went, all right, I'm not going to be an ass, but think about it. As a single male, I don't give a shit, dude. I'll go buy one. And that was 15 years ago. The property value still hasn't gone up. I can't imagine me dating and a girl has got a key to my place. I go, yeah, I'll be home at 2 after my shift or whatever. But she's going to go and park the car on the street as a single white woman in an all black neighborhood. It's like, I'm sorry, I can't ask her to do that. Oh, but you're racist. When the black community decides to acknowledge, because the answer always is a response of, well, what about white school shooters? I don't care. You want to pick a white crime? I'll 100% acknowledge the white criminal activity that goes behind it. We don't need to. Sure, you win. Great. Now what? Let's go back to talking about the black community. There is no other culture that commits violence per capita at the ratio, whatever you want, that the black community does. Here's some 9-month numbers. It's the first 9 months that Mayor Brandon Johnson, who's a self-admitted socialist in the city of Chicago, got voted in for his skin color, just like Lori Lightfoot did. He's already crying racist. That's why he can't succeed in his city. Shooting numbers are about average. The first 9 months, shot and wounded under Rahm Emanuel was 2,100. Under Lori Lightfoot is 1,800, and under him is 1,900. Listen to the carjackings, stolen carjackings. Under Rahm Emanuel, we had 8,000 carjacking, stolen cars in his first 9 months. Under Lori Lightfoot, 6,000. Under Brandon Johnson, 21,000. 21,000.
Yeah, because grand larceny and grand theft auto were pushed out by those progressive DAs. That's one of the first things he did was lower the overall criminal conviction rate by forgiving based upon how many times someone's done it, what the value was, whether there was a weapon involved, and that's why they're increasing, because people know they can get away with it.
We saw that. I'll never forget it. It was the Gallegos brothers. I didn't understand it. In 2003, we kept arresting them for everything, little 18-year-old shithead gang members. And every time we arrested them, we're getting paid. What are you talking about, dude? What are you talking? I understood it. They knew they would get in, they would get out, they would look to sue, all this shit. The criminals have been looking at stuff like it's a game for years. And there is no black accountability in the neighborhoods. There's only white blame and white guilt.
It's interesting you say that, because when we look, this is where you and I agree, and I'm not all about, well, the society made these people. That's not what I'm saying. But I can look at both sides. I can look at the statistics from the inner city and the opportunity that's available, and then I can also look at, I mean, who the fuck is going to go work at Subway for $11.25 an hour when they can go ahead and deal rock and make $1,000 100%. A week? But that's the old adage, but really the truth of the matter is, when you say this, is that the black population has not increased. Isn't it interesting that for the last 20 years, the black population is now, it may be larger, but proportionally it hasn't been. It really has been hanging around that 12 to 14% for the last 20 years. And it's not expanding. There are more black people than there were in the 1960s. Yes, that's true, but there's also more white people. But what we're seeing is that people are having less children for the first time ever. I don't know if you heard this, but first time ever last month, this year, we had more illegal immigrants cross the border into the United States than we had newborn babies. First time ever. So we're obviously going the way of the Japanese, which in 30 years, they're saying the Japanese ultimately are going to lose 50% of their population because they're all older. The reason I bring this up is because when we look proportionately at white, Anglo-Saxon, Protestant, whatever you want to say, male or female, and then you put in the Latino population, which is actually mixed in with whites, right? It's the white Latino population. For some reason, that's the way the census does this. You're looking at almost 70%, 71% of the population has white or Hispanic blood. Mm-hmm. Now, if you look at the crime, and this is violent crime, rape, murder, strong arm robbery, larceny, grand theft auto, the ones that have a victim, you're going to see that proportionately with a population of 70% to 12% ratio, you're going to look, and let's just break it down, right? That's 1 in 8. Or you can look at it 2 out of 10. But either way, you're going to find that 50% of those crimes are owned by the African-American population, and whites own the other portion. And then, of course, Asians, whatever. It's disproportionate. And I think that's the point you're trying to make. And it's not racist just to look at the numbers and say African Americans own most of the crime with one of the lowest amounts of population and demographics in the United States. Why? And we've got to start asking that question. And last thing quickly is that when we look at the opportunity inside these areas, and we've talked about how there's fatherless homes. You've mentioned that, how religion has been replaced by rap music and culture is dead. This was a very proud community. African Americans were some of the most strict parents that I've ever met growing up, and they were determined that their child wasn't going to end up dead on the street. It seems now that they've succumbed to this norm of just you're a statistic and go out there and do whatever you can and get yours, because your life expectancy, you're not going to reach 30 anyway.
That's 100%. I listened to a black professor from the University of Chicago back in '05 gave a radio interview for like WGN, and he just to kind of like paraphrase what he said he believes a lot of it has to do with fetal alcohol syndrome. He goes, you have a lot of mothers who are drinking, and he said mostly it's it's females, but you see in the black community. I just watched a video the other day of I watch a lot of them. On Instagram, you see a lot of women who think that it's okay and it's funny to post videos of them disrespecting, joking around, slapping their husbands or boyfriends, this and that. And dude, I'm all about respect. I don't give a shit what you do. I'll end the relationship immediately if I feel disrespected blatantly. And I can't tell you how many times I've seen firsthand the violence in the black community where it'll be 911 call and females know how to play the system. All they have to do is scream, this and that. We'd show up on black domestics, and the guy would just be sitting there calm, quiet, because he knows. It's like, dude, what happened? And he'd just shake his head, and she just wants him out, so she makes some shit up. And then this used to piss me off. As you're escorting him out, hey, you got a place to stay? Let's go. I'll take you to your friend's house. You're not even handcuffing him. And then you get it used to piss me off. The black bitches would just fucking say, look at what they're doing to your daddy. Look what the police doing. It's like, you fucking cunt. You're blaming me for coming here, helping you. I'm getting him a place to stay. And now you're telling the police are the problem for what they're taking your daddy out of home, which is teaching the children how to fucking hate police. So there's white cunts, there's black cunts, there's Hispanic cunts. I'm so tired of this shit, but nobody owns their garbage for their community and their culture.
Yeah, that word doesn't bother me because I was deployed, so I was overseas, and that word is used like buddy overseas, and it doesn't have the same context. So I find myself occasionally using it. My wife hates it, but she's kind of grown accustomed to it. I think I hear what you're saying, right? I think you have a perspective that most people don't, and I think it's really important when we're having a conversation like this. It's supposed to be like intellectual and supposed to like make people think. Is that you got to understand where people are coming from, and you're a police officer. You've seen shit that most people. My dad always told me, he's like, Matt, keep your visor down on the vehicle. Your sunscreen. Don't put it like in line with your eyes. Don't either put it up or put it forward. And I was like, what? And I'm like, why is this so important? My seatbelt, whatever. Don't open the door while we're moving. And my dad would come in and just put that visor up or put it down. And then finally, when I was old enough, he just looked at me and said, dude, Matty, if you understood how many people I pulled out of the vehicles with crowbars who were essentially the top of their head was cut off because of those metal freaking sunscreens, you would understand why it's so important to me. And it's important for you to understand why I feel that way, but you won't unless you ask the question. So I get where you're coming from. And I've also been on the other side and asked those questions. It comes to this. There is no reason for liberals to improve the system for blacks because because it's a voting farm. They will always vote because they've put them in a position. And this is it. I'm going to take your money if you don't vote for us, because Republicans aren't going to give you free shit. So we're going to give you, and that's all this is about. And it's what it's always been about. But the black community is starting to talk out against this crap. And it's amazing because when you hear the narrative that Republicans, the KKK, and we're Nazis and Jim Crow, which is completely the farthest thing from the fucking truth, they're starting to wake up to this. And it's a good thing. Now, here's the problem, Dom. Will Republicans actually do something?
I doubt it.
No, they won't. Nobody will.
The city of Chicago, they're absolutely horrible. Republicans are just as bad as Democrats. And for those who are offended that I use the words black and bitch in the same phrase, eat me. My dream threesome is Venus Blue and Diamond Jackson all doing sick things to me. Don't Google my search history because you probably be selectively outraged and disappointed. And I would Venus and Serena Williams at the same time. Oh, that would be so taboo and hot.
Didn't you say white bitch though too?
Oh yeah, the white cunts. White cunt, Hispanic 100%.
So it's not racist.
No, but people like that's all they hear. Yes, of course. Let's talk about misogyny for a second. That's a phenomenal segue. You are you a parent of boys?
I have one boy and one girl.
Do they do sports?
Yes.
What sports do they do?
My son is he's 10 years old and he is going for his black belt in karate. He's been doing it since he was 2.5.
Ooh, okay, kind of parallel. So over the weekend, the bug bit and went to go watch my cousin's kids. So my second cousins wrestling tournament, and I was a wrestler. It was one of the biggest parts of my life. All this, so you had like 4-year-olds, and one of my cousins is 7, and the other one is 10, and it was great. And I watched a couple of mixed gendered ones. Right, I'm torn. Two things that kind of bothered me, and maybe I'm like, damn, where did this come from? Wrestling is an extremely emotional sport. When I was 17, I lost to a kid from Hersey High School that there was no way I was pinned. The ref was blind. The lights were shining down on us, so it cast a shadow to where my shoulders were. I had, got to make weight, so I'm stressed. It's the middle of the holiday, all this crap. I was so overcome with emotion that I had to go hide in the locker room and purge by bawling. I couldn't control it. I knew I wasn't pinned. I was so fucking frustrated. I could not fight the tears. And I want to say that that's hormones. That was lack of food, all this shit. So I've given them a pass. I can't believe how many boys I saw lose over the weekend, and they started crying while they were losing, after they were losing, or when the coach would try to sit there and say, good job, they would slap the hand out of the way, argue with the coach. Dad would come up and say something, and the kids would. I'm like, because I'm not a dad. I'm not a parent. But I'm like, holy shit, what the hell is going on with our boys? Second thing I saw that I didn't like was the mixing of genders wrestling. At 4, 5, 6, 7, maybe even 10 years old, I'm going to be okay. But I just saw, I guess NCAA had a bronze medal girl who just won. And here's my problem when it gets older. As a male, these are your choices when you wrestle a girl, and why it's bad for men who wrestle. If you beat a girl, oh, congrats, you beat a girl. If you lose to a girl, oh, Matt, you lost to a girl. Or if you say, hey, I'm forfeiting this match because I don't believe in wrestling women. Oh, you're sexist, huh? What's the matter? Not good enough? So as a parent, how do you see those two issues of if your son is crying coming off the mat or wrestling a girl?
So you always got stories. First thing is if you're a prepubescent boy or close to, and you are wrestling a girl, you are fighting a completely different struggle than she is. Let's be honest. Yeah. Seriously, you are close and intimate up with a girl.
Yep.
And that's probably the first time you have. And I can't imagine being a 14-year-old or 13-year-old having to wrestle a girl on him. You know what? That's a completely different fight. Dude. And that struggle. I mean, you're hormonal. You're a guy. It could be a pie or a hole in the wall, and you're going to want to go after
in a singlet. So, right.
Right. So it's not to be graphic. It's just a completely different struggle where that girl is completely focused on just kicking your ass. You're going to be focused on, oh, do I grab her here? Do I not grab her here? And if I grab her here, holy shit, what's going on? So I think that's why those sports are dangerous after, like you said, 5, 6, 7 years old. So the second thing is that my son, he was in Little Tigers and Little Dragons. And in the state of Texas, there hasn't been a child who's reached black belt in Little Dragons. It's 12 steps. But he started, like I said, at 2.5, and he reached it in Houston, Texas, one of the first. So when they moved him up, they moved him into juniors, and he's out of Dragons, and now he's in Tigers, and he's learning adult taekwondo. And anyway, so they put him in an age group, 5 years, 6.5, and he's going up against 8-year-olds who are all like 1.5 feet bigger than him. So he's squaring off and no fear, right? And he has glasses on. I mean, that's the type of kid he is. And he's sitting there and he's squaring off, and this bigger kid just looks at him and steps up and keeps his guard down. He just walks right into it. And my son comes up and he just crushes him in the nose and drops him. Now, he can't do that. He can only hit the side, but he didn't know. And this kid crumpled like a frickin' just a paper cup. And my son started crying, and he goes to his respective corner and he sits there and he's crying. And then they call it, he gets a DQ point, and he ultimately comes back and wins. But he comes over to me and he's like, I'm crying. And I said, who are you crying for? You crying for you, or are you crying for him? He goes, I'm crying for him. And I said, that's who you should be crying for. Wipe it off, end it. But if he cries for himself, that is completely opposite of sportsmanship. And that's why we do this. Yes, we do it to win. Yes, we do it because it's fun. Yes, we do it because our parents are living vicariously through our children. But there has to be something taught in the process. And I learned something very valuable. I wasn't always a winner. And honestly, I wasn't very good. So I always rode the bench. And you learn those failures in order to go ahead and learn how to achieve success. And the problem with this generation, Dom, is nobody's learning how to fail, and they're being set up for a false expectation when they get out in the real world. And it's crushing these kids. It's crushing them in every facet, their jobs, their education, marriage, whatever it is.
Oh, look at the education. And I'm not going to go back in the black community, but they have it in over, I think it was Utah or something, that they're not going to be graded on proficiency tests. So you take a kid who decides to do a sport, and then, oh, it's okay, you're just going to be so... Dude, my mother was a bitch, man. When I wound up losing that match and I was crying and I couldn't control myself, she basically told me, shut the fuck up. And I'm like, all right, got it. Let's move on. Let's suppress that and continue to move on as a man. These are
what did you want her to do? What did you want her to say?
I couldn't, because I could not identify why I was upset, right? The only thing I could think of is if I say something, like running for office really taught me a number on how evil people are, because do not accuse me of lying if I didn't lie. And that's the number one thing that will set me fucking off. And it kind of felt like that, right? I didn't lose. I was not pinned. I was so pissed. So I just don't like that, and I want an acknowledgement of that. Even if it was, hey, listen, that's how calls go. You know, you got screwed over, is what it is, move on. But that's a different story. Growing up with an Italian mother who had no compassion.
I don't envy you. I bet mine was Greek. So
there you go. There you go. Oh, you're the prince. Shut up, fucking.
But all the refs, playing hockey. That's you learn that pretty early on. Is you don't mess with the ref. Same thing in baseball and stuff like that. But trust me, man, there's times I'm sitting behind home plate and the guy's throwing a ball. It's 5 feet above my son's head. And I'm just sitting there going, come on, man. Seriously, how do you expect me not to say something? I get it. I understand my parents get that way, but I don't know, man. I think people take things way too seriously. None of these kids are going to be pro balls.
No, these are players. But these are our doctors and lawyers and everything else that are coming up. If they're not holding a standard on sports, on proficiency tests, we already have the college acceptance based on your marginalized culture. These are people that the day that you have a grabber and you're getting ready to cut open, I'm going, no, I want the guy with the Indian accent who just moved here 3 years ago, because I know how much more serious they took the schooling over and in another culture. I don't want an American operating on me at all. And that's where we're at.
I saw a quote last night. It's going to tie well into this before you get to the next block. But diversity, because every person deserves an equal chance to prove their incompetence.
That's the damn shit, man. That's how it is on everything. It's
true, man. I mean, listen, it's just, this is the world we live in, is that failure is no longer something that you can learn from. It essentially destroys your character. Do you know, I mean, here's one thing, is that there are people who are removing their children. They're having silent births. This was an article that came out with Tom Cruise and Katie Holmes, is that Katie Holmes had to perform a silent birth. And what that means is that they cover her mouth and they won't allow her to scream, and she can't scream because it stresses the baby out. And I'm like, listen, dude, if you think that a couple loud decibels are going to bother a child when he is being squeezed through a canal the size of a freaking apricot at times, I think we're losing perspective. Just a little bit.
There's Fridays or Thursdays and Fridays, like Lola and Kayla will talk about energies and frequencies. I believe in that, dude. My first fucking memory, I think I was 3 years old. So I don't remember shit at the birthing canal. My mother could have fucking thrown a bed tray or a piss pan at a doctor. Wouldn't have bothered me at all.
Well, something happened, obviously. We're just still trying to find out what it was.
Well, me? Oh, no. I grew up in a household where you got the shit beat out of you. That's what it was.
Yeah, me too. And you'll find that's a common
denominator.
I mean, everybody carries a cross.
You're the same age as I am. Did your mom have the Dr. Spock book?
No, my mother was classic narcissist. And violent.
Did she pass too?
No, she's still alive.
Yeah,
I'm almost 20 years.
Dude, people don't get this. It's like there's somebody posted a meme the other day. You don't know what it's like when you lose a parent, and I'm like, fuck you, dude. Yeah. My mother was, and I blame it on prednisone. She was taking prednisone for decades, it seemed, and she was just a cunt. And I'm like, no, the happiest, like, she's dead a year yesterday. And my siblings and my dad all got together, and I'm like, I'll fake being, kind of stoic for you guys, but I'm not sad. I'm just not.
It's listen, I think this is, my daughter and my son were at the table and we were having a family talk. And I said, listen, you guys are going to spank your kids. You can sit here and pretend you're not going to, but you will. And my daughter's like, no, I won't. I'm like, I said the same thing. And let me explain something. You guys, why won't you do A, B, C, and D? Why have you never had a tantrum in public? Why? Because we get our butts kicked. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's a difference between discipline and abuse. And it's a very fine line. And there's no doubt in my mind that I was physically abused several times by several different people in my family. But I also have to look at it this way, is that builds something. It builds resistance. It's just like when you have a shitty boss. Oh, I can't learn anything. I can't do my job. Well, yeah, you can. You can learn how not to be a horrible boss.
Yes, thank you.
Wonderful trait.
Thank you.
So I learned how not to parent sometimes. So no matter how bad it was, dude, you are who you are. I am who I am. And we would be different if we didn't have these experiences, no matter how shitty they are.
Yeah, no, classical conditioning is huge. And we used to talk to people about that. That was my favorite, is when you get the 911 call, you show up on scene and you have the parent, what's going on? My 14-year-old just told me to go fuck myself. And, I told him to go do whatever. Okay, open your hand, right? And 5-star your kid across the face. But you call 911. That's fine. As long as you don't use an object, a belt, whatever, that's fine. Do whatever. And then when we used to tell that and you see the kids go, oh shit, really? Be a different story. DCFS, which is Department of Child Family Services out here in Illinois, they sucked. I cannot believe how many times when a serious shit happened, they didn't do anything but the petty stuff. They got their nose and they ruined, and ruined people's lives. I found out years later that, I guess, just like anything else, DCFS, which is funded by the state, the government, there's an incentive, right? Let's just call it $3,000. For every kid that a caseworker has in the system, that location receives $3,000. And this is not exactly how it goes, but people get the general idea. So isn't it in your best interest, if you want a paycheck, to make sure that your location is funded? Otherwise, hey, we have no child problems in the area. Great, we could downsize the staff by 50%.
Right, just like schools, right? Just like schools that are funded and fund their teachers based on faculty. And this is a whole other conversation. Maybe we can do it next week. But my battle against CPS, I had my entire office from the superintendent all the way down fired from CPS. They all got fired. So they came after me about a year ago. And this was a huge, huge thing. And this was all over. And it's a really interesting story. We'll have to do it sometime. But
you've got like 10 minutes if you want to run into it.
All right, I'll be quick.
You don't have to be quick. I'm very curious about this.
All right. So about my son and daughter, when we moved from Houston, it was during COVID. It was an extremely hard time. I lost my job at Flags of Valor because COVID hit and they lost 66% of their productivity. And I'm making $150K a year as a corporate executive for bigger companies. And they're like, dude, we can't afford you. We're going to keep you on at like $30,000. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I made $30,000 since I was 18 years old. So it got stressful in the house. I lost my way. I started yelling. I was just not happy. I was pissed off, and I wasn't coaching my kids through things. I wasn't giving them discipline with love. I was doing it because I was grumpy and pissed off. Never, ever did I hit them or spank them in a way that was out of violence, but I raised my voice. I'm a big guy. I'm 6'4" and 225. I'm loud and I'm fucking intimidating. And there's no doubt about it. So, but there's things that happen. Stealing of credit cards, going into Walgreens and using our credit card, pocketing 5-finger discounts on Snickers, stealing from neighbors, lying. I mean, just my kids just completely rebelled because they were so unhappy here as we're locked down in our homes. So it was a tough time for us. And there's no doubt. But what had happened during this process is my sister, who got to cut the cord for my son, and I allowed her to do that and brought her in because she can't have kids. She went through in vitro. She went through tried to go through adoption. She was working Machiavellian behind my back, as my mother is classic narcissist and completely insane. So she hasn't had kids, and she attached herself to my children to a point of almost obsession. And we never really had a problem with it. But during COVID, I was like, you know what? Let's get Kelly here, even though she said she's going to come out here 56 times and she always bails on my kids. They want to come out. Let's get them out here. And then maybe we can allow our kids to go back to California, go to Disneyland or whatever, because now COVID's kind of lightened up. So we embraced this, and they came out here, and I should have known something was wrong because they didn't talk to us. They looked at us. There was no hugs. There was no, oh my God, we miss you. And I'm like, we've always had that close relationship. What I found out is that my sister was sending texts to my daughter and saying things like, you'll be with me soon. We'll get you all the psychology. You'll have parents who love you. I mean, manipulating her like, dude, I can't, the texts that if I read them to you, you'd fucking throw up. And there was just this whole thing came. And during this time, we're doing things like, okay, physical exercise. We're doing things as punishment, cleaning up, or you're going to go on a run or whatever. So she started planting these things and telling my daughter, record conversations where dad will get upset, or, take photographs and all this other shit, and trying to convince my daughter to call CPS in Virginia. And then started working on my son. And this was actually said, Hayden, which is my daughter's name, don't tell Ethan, because Ethan has too good of a heart and he won't go along with this. So you need to do it. I mean, evil shit, Dom. So, and anyway, my son, the litany of stuff that was happening was just out of control, but he started stealing food, and he took 5 string cheeses and stuffed them under the couch after he ate them all. We grabbed him and said, hey, come on, you can't do that. You got to stop dinners, whatever. Then he started doing it again, and then he did it again. Then he went up to his bedroom, did the same. So it was just constant misbehavior. So I had him go to the couch, and I swatted him on the ass 4 times with a belt. And in the state of Virginia, you are allowed to use a belt, but it cannot be violent and leave a mark.
Right, yeah.
The first time what's that?
No, yeah, I agree with that. I would have no problem with that.
Right. So I in no way, shape, or form have I ever used a belt on my kids before. My daughter 1 time, my son 1 time. In the entire existence of their life together, maybe 9 times they've had spankings. We were disciplined. We were hard. We were tough, but we never physically took our anger out on the kids. So what my daughter does is we found out later that my son and daughter and myself has something called dermatographia. It's a skin disorder that you can write on the skin. And that's what it means in the Latin, is to graph, to write, and dermatology. So you can just take a nail and go down the side of my face. It'll be bright red, very lightly. So what had happened is when I spanked him with a belt, and dude, I'm talking like it wasn't even, dude. And he had red marks on his butt. So my daughter took photos. Then she manufactured marks on her on instruction from my sister, and she went to CPS. My sister called CPS over 200 times during a 3-week period. She was doing this to my daughter for over a year and a half. So needless to say, one day we're sitting down there in the basement and everything's coming to a head, and we get a notification that someone's on my property, and it's a police cruiser. Now I know because it's a cruiser and it's an unmarked civvy, so I know it's a detective, and I know someone's going to prison in this house. It's probably going to be me. I don't know what I did, but I want to find out. Open up the door, and this is a detective and 2 uniformed officers. And they're like, are you Mr. Spear? I said, yes, I am. And they said, well, we need to talk to you. Can you come out on the porch? I said, sure. So I said, I'm armed. I'm going to go ahead and relieve myself of my firearm. Is that okay? And the officer said, you know what? And he got nervous. And I said, here, how about we do this? I'm going to put my hands up. You go ahead and remove my firearm. And I give you permission to do that. And you can set that wherever you want. And he does. So I come out and I said, what's going on, officers? What can I do for you? He says, Mr. Spear, can you come down and answer a few questions for us? And I said, sure, depending upon what it is. What is it? He's like, well, I can't really tell you that. And I said, okay.
I'd be like, am I under arrest right there? You got a warrant? Am I being charged?
That's what I said. I said, do you have a warrant? And they said, well, we have a warrant. We just don't have it on file. I said, you don't have a warrant. And he goes, yes. And he goes, let me ask you a couple questions, blah, blah, blah. And then I wait for him to ask, and I give him the basics. And then he starts probing. And I said, are you going to read me my rights? He goes, we don't have to read you your rights. And I said, actually, the basic general form of questioning has stopped, and you are now in an investigation. You need to read me my rights. He says, no, we don't. And I said, okay, here, let's do this. Am I under arrest? And he goes, yes, you're under arrest. And I said, fine. So they take me to jail. I have the interview, and he goes, do you want your lawyer? I said, no. I have nothing to hide. What do you want to know? He opens up a stack of papers like this high and starts reading things that you cannot believe. Some of the worst atrocities. And I'm like, no wonder why this guy looks like he wants to take me behind the fucking jail. So at about 20 minutes in, I tell him everything in this, and he walks up and he goes, stand up. In the middle of the interview, takes off my cuffs. And I'm like, oh, he's playing good cop. Puts his hand on my shoulder and he goes, you're not an abuser. You're a father. He's like, we're going to figure this out. Goes up to the magistrate Magistrate reads over and goes, Mr. Spear, are you here? This is your job. He's like, you're released on your own recognizance. You have to come back to court, but no bail. You're going home tonight. The detective slaps me in the back and goes, this is the right thing. I go, great. Desk sergeant says so. During that time, they are interrogating my wife without representation, CPS, inside the home. And they told her, either you let us in or we're taking your kids. Verbatim. She has it on recording. For 3 hours, they just grill her. And she's not built this way like I am. Mm-hmm. So I call her and I say, hey, honey, come pick me up. They made her sign a piece of paper, which we didn't get a copy of. We didn't get an email of, which had some basic lists of things we had to follow. So I come back home and Olivia's like, you can't, you're going to get arrested. I said, this is bullshit. I got the magistrate who sent me home. I got the detective. I got the desk sergeant, everybody. They drove me home, for God's sake. I come in. Noon the next day, CPS calls. I had my lawyer at that point, Force Recon Marine, and he says, just refer them to me. Everything's going to be fine. And I do that. And I said, I want to help. I want to do the interview. I want to talk to y'all, but you need to go through my lawyer. At 3:00, they took both of my kids. They went to their school and they abducted my children, CPS, and they were going to put them in a foster home because I wouldn't do an interview. So it was retaliatory. This whole thing happened. I had to leave my home, stay out for a week. I was charged with delinquency of a minor, which I was charged for the wrong thing. It should have been domestic battery, if that's what they really are going to accuse me of. The whole thing goes on. We start uncovering things. We start finding emails from the sister, the lies. The kids admit they lied. The kids own all of it. We got them on recording, the whole thing. Needless to say, all charges dropped with extreme prejudice. The prosecutor openly admitted that they knew my show. They knew what I did. And a lot of it came from that. The investigator, the family counselor, the supervisor, and the regional manager of CPS, the day that I was supposed to go to the court in order to have everything expunged and for them to either move forward or not, they dropped all charges. They dropped the case, and all 4 of those people were fired.
Yeah, but they still charged you and ruined your life during that time, which is what people don't understand. Yeah. We talked about this last week. You just experienced on the local level what this bullshit, like him or hate him, what Trump's going through is giving permission for cities, counties, states to do what they did to you.
Yep.
100%.
Commonwealth attorney hates me. I went after LCPS for the cover up that they did with the transgenders that were raped, the transgender person who raped the 2 girls, Brandon Michon, who ran for Congress, who was the upset dad. He's a friend of mine. All of this. And I wasn't at January 6th. I don't buy into the stolen election. I'm not a fucking, person like that. I'm just a dad. And they went after me hard, and they all were fired, man. They cleaned them out because they knew I was going to sue them. They had nothing. Dumb. It was all lies. I can't imagine your frustration, because on some level I was a part of that stuff, and I know how easy it is to ruin somebody's life, and it sucks. That's a horrible, great story. The DUM Show, make sure you go check it out at Spreely.com. Go ahead and check out the app as well too. Say something, say free speech on there. Say Kamala Harris sucks good cock. I don't care. Say something offensive and nothing's going to happen. End of story. Or call in Chelsea and complain to Chelsea about my show. I don't care. Other than that, guys, have a great damn day. Tomorrow, oh shit, I don't have my schedule up. Man of War, the gentleman who runs the Man of War program. We're going to have him on tomorrow because we're going to be talking about all these overgrown men who need fucking toughening up. It makes no sense to me whatsoever. Guys, have a great damn day. Go help somebody, because it's the greatest way to help yourself. And if you can't help them, just don't hurt them. Don't be a piece of shit. See you guys tomorrow. Thanks, Iz.